Hi, I'm Denise Merritt, CEO and founder of Merritt Business Solutions. Thanks so much for joining Merritt and Friends today. We hope you find the topic helpful, and if you don't mind, stay after and we'll share how Merritt Business Solutions may help your business. Thanks and enjoy.
Welcome everyone to Merritt and Friends. My name is Mandy Waters with Merritt Business Solutions. Today I have Dr. Michelle Griffin here to talk about psychological safety in the workplace. She has over 12 years of human resources, and about 4 years ago, she started Griffin Resources, where she offers fractional HR support to small and mid-sized companies. She recently just graduated with her doctorate in industrial and organizational psychology, concentrating on workplace issues facing individuals, teams, and organizations. It is my honor to introduce you to Dr. Michelle Griffin. Welcome to Merritt and Friends.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk about this topic. It dives right into the research that I did for my doctorate as well. So I'm very excited to get into it.
Well, that is awesome. What exactly is psychological safety?
So psychological safety is the component. There's about 4 components, which we'll go over, and it really creates the backbone of a culture. And there's different aspects to making sure that everyone in the company feels safe and secure in their environment. And there's lots of aspects to that environment that makes up the culture as a whole. And so this is about the mental health and psychological safety that different things can impact a person inside a company that can influence their decision to stay as an employee or not. Even if it's not directly affecting them, it might be affecting their coworkers, and they just don't want to be a part of that environment. So we're starting to see new trends, and especially since COVID, and people working remotely or in just different cultures throughout the United States and even abroad. So we're starting to see different people having to work together that they may not have had in the past, especially with the change in technology. Things are cheaper and easier to do things like this on Zoom. And, years ago, let's say 5-10 years ago, this was really expensive. And it wasn't that easy for multicultural people to be blended together, whereas now it's very commonplace.
Definitely. So the first one.
Yeah, so inclusion safety is obviously multiple facets of inclusion, from just different backgrounds, diversities, culture, identities. I want to focus on the LGBTQ movement. There's been a lot of discussion just around this, a lot of new laws that are affecting this community, especially, well, we're here in Florida, so we're seeing a lot of new laws and changes that are affecting the workplace. And we're starting to see that throughout, other states as well. So this is a very impactful conversation to have about this culture. But I want to specifically focus on cultural appreciation versus appropriation. And that, there's a lot of hot topics about appropriation where it's like, well, you can't support that community because if you do that, maybe you're offending them. So there's definitely ways to be respectful and appreciate, or even just, help out a community that you may not identify with or be a part of, which is perfectly fine, but you do have to be respectful of your coworkers. So the cultural appreciation in the context of LGBTQ would be just respect and understanding them, recognizing that there's just different challenges in the workforce. And, if it's as small as a multi-gender bathroom in the workspace, just making sure that people have a safe space. It could even, be so far as breastfeeding and having a mother's room to do that, and even another thing that not part of this community, but a prayer room for, there's other people that, just have different religious needs and things like that. So it's no different than a smoke break. You have a smoker section. So just being aware of why would you accommodate smokers and you're not going to accommodate religion? So things like that, just supporting an allyship, just making sure that, you're being informed about what might impact them, what kind of give them a voice, just help them, be appreciated and, understand that those things are impactful. Being more appropriation is obviously the exact opposite. Misusing the use of symbols. We're seeing a lot of people put in their signatures now their preferred gender pronouns, his and her, regardless of how they appear, or even if their name seems to be gender obvious. We're still seeing a lot of that change on LinkedIn and companies adopting this pattern. So don't, think that that's an appropriation, because that is something that's trying to be a little more inclusive. There's tokenization, which is identities or experiences that are trendy and fashionable, that you're kind of just jumping on a bandwagon, rather than actually helping them. Like the situation with Bud Light recently. There's been a huge backlash of that company didn't support their marketing decisions and even fired their marketing person for supporting a transgendered person as a marketing idol or icon, and it didn't work in their favor. And then the company did stand by it. So that was a situation where something that might have started as an appreciation turned into appropriation and had a huge backlash on a company that tanked their profits.
That's huge. And how do you, I mean, there are probably so many individuals that are trying to figure out what would be appreciation versus appropriation. Are there, I mean, quickly, is there any clear way to know if you're actually showing genuine appreciation? Or
I think it comes down to intent and then being able to stand by your decisions. And, hopefully people have kind of a gut check about it. And if you're trying to be malicious or mean, and you're trying to segregate a population, regardless of what it is, you're going to end up in appropriation. If you are trying to be genuine about your understanding of them, whether it be religion or LGBTQ or just different cultures, different languages, then there's, if you're just trying to help and understand and you're coming at it from a genuine place, usually the gut check should work. But obviously people have their differences of opinions, and obviously being able to, be respectful when you're trying to articulate some of those ideas. But being obviously open-minded and welcoming to people that are different from yourself.
That's just should be general knowledge. That should just be what we all do. But I appreciate that.
Yeah, the next one is learner safety. So this is obviously just an area of, just creating an environment where people are free to learn and take risks and ask questions. If you create an environment of fear, mainly just because if you're not sure about, what repercussions that might have, they're afraid to make mistakes because they're going to get in trouble. They're more likely to hide those mistakes and things like that. So even if it's just having an area where they can freely not only be creative, but there's a safe space where if they make a mistake, they're not going to get fired for it, that there is an entire safe space to do that. Google is an amazing example of this, where for many, many, many years, they still have it to this day, where 20% of an employee's work week can be spent on anything they want to do, any passion project, any new ideas. They have the time and space to trial and error, waste company time and resources to see what else might flourish. And that is exactly where we got Google Maps, Gmail, and Google News were created out of these environments where people could just freely come up with new ideas. I do remember the story of when they first started to come up with this idea. This was back when you could only get the movie times in the paper, or you had to call and listen to the entire recording of like, here's all of the movie times. And if you missed your exact movie title and time, you have to sit there and listen to the whole thing over again. So with that frustration, someone at Google created, a place where people could, look up the movie times and, things like that and that evolved into, obviously the AMC having their own thing or whatever, and you just didn't have to do that anymore. But different things like that of being able to, having to call the operator to find out the weather, or if schools were closed. Now there's Google News and things like that. So you didn't have to call the operator or so some of us that are old enough to remember that it's So it's definitely one of those things where it's like you can encourage encourage that curiosity and learning and support. And obviously these were game changers for Google as a company. So imagine if, any company were to put this safe space, whether it be, really asking the employees to come up with new ideas. How would they improve the company? What do they really want? And giving them that safe space to do that.
That is huge. I mean, I can't tell you how many business owners I talk to is that this is the way I've done it. This is the way you're going to do it. And being so close-minded, there are many opportunities that are missed simply because they're not able to think out of the box because they've been in the box for so long. So to give that opportunity for a fresh set of eyes is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And should be common sense.
Yeah, I mean, and some of these, it's just being able to, it sounds common sense, but then you're like, is the revenue really going to be there? Do I know better? Am I going to just give them projects to work on and tell them this is what we're going to go do? Someone else came with these ideas and we're going to go implement them. So it's really, this is kind of ties right into contributor safety, giving them that space to have feedback and have open communication. So this is where my research comes into play. So I specifically looked at what's called knowledge transfer. Knowledge transfer from the subsidiary back up to the parent company was vital for even the parent company to listen and understand that market space. So what they had done was create opportunities. And that is as simple as it sounds, literally create meetings that make sense with the right people in the room, and obviously virtually in most situations. And then they listened to the people about who should be in that room. And I was very surprised to observe meetings where there were salespeople, marketing people, HR, and leadership. And HR is talking about where are they with recruiting campaigns, marketing is talking about a new website that's being built, salespeople are talking about what's in the pipeline, how many more employees are they going to need, and leadership is in the room and talking about budget and where they are. And there was an accounting person in the room as well that literally were talking about where clients were behind in payments, and everybody was privy to this information. They were freely talking about this. And those meetings happened because people were saying it would be really great if we didn't have to have a meeting and then go talk to budgeting. Let's have a meeting and then go talk to HR. So put everybody in a room, have an effective 30-minute meeting, and get business done. And everybody is appropriate that's supposed to be there. And you're not having meetings about meetings. And so that is where I mean by creating opportunities really came into play. And then there's something called management absorption capacity, which is literally your capacity to absorb new information. Are you so bogged down that if you got new information, you just can't take the time to think about it, and you have no idea even what to do with that information. You have no way to retain it or monitor it or write it down. So you have to create intentional resources. In this case, they used technology and a CRM and Power BI to track all that and keep all that information very transparent. And then there's the feedback part of it. So anyone that gave ideas, they always got feedback. And I mean, always. So it didn't matter if it was a stupid idea or if it was a great idea and they were going to, change the company over building a new CRM was one of the employees' ideas. And, using the same platform, they decided on Teams and use that across the system. So if it was a bad idea or an idea that the company couldn't work on, they gave them feedback that was always respectful, that said, your idea, thank you for your idea. We can't use it. Here's why. And that gave them the power to keep giving new ideas. Maybe one's going to work. Maybe one will be a good time. And if they understood it wasn't a good time, maybe they can remember to bring it back up in 6 months or a year when they start to see things and they say, when we're in this space, it's a good idea. So then they even know what to do with that information. And it was really interesting when I talked to the leaders of that, they took it to heart that it is their responsibility to make sure that that culture lied with them. And to them, it was absolutely important because they literally said it was their heart and soul of how the company worked. And they all felt like they worked for one company, regardless of where they lived and worked across international borders. And because they, at least had feedback on their ideas and they felt like their voice was heard and they had a contribution. So,
and
go ahead.
And that's the great thing about engaging with your employees. when they feel engaged, when they feel like they're appreciated, when they feel like their thoughts and their ideas are heard, whether or not they actually come to fruition, it's okay, well, here I'm being appreciated as a person, as a contributor. And then if they're approached by someone offering 50 cents more an hour, they're like, you know what? I've got it really good. I've got a community that I'm able to contribute to. So
Right.
that's huge for business owners.
And it definitely plays into employee retention and turnover. It's obviously really expensive for turnover and getting new talent. It's much easier to keep talent, but obviously make a good culture out of that and have productive employees. And one of the craziest things is how much turnover is going in one direction, faster. So in the boomers, they were working at one company on average 19 years. Gen X worked on average for 10 years, and now millennials are flipping. It was 18 months. It's now down to 11 months post COVID. And that is real-time research. And it's when asked about opportunities and remaining with a company, 74% of newer, younger Gen Z, being called Zennials, have said that is one of their major reasons to leave a company or influence their decision to stay, is having a voice, versus only 27% of boomers or millennials or Gen X said that was important to them. So we're starting to see that they want influence. Now, a lot of times our older generation is seeing that as entitled. And it's like, where you come off thinking you have time and, life experience to have a voice, but that's not really what they mean. They just want to be included. They want to be heard. They want to have a collaborative environment. And they're only going to know and grow by speaking up and someone giving them the safe space to do that, and then telling them why that can't be implemented, and, or when it can, or maybe work together to make it into a better idea. And that's what they're looking for. And so that will help reduce that turnover that we're really seeing in the workforce shortage issues.
That is some all great stuff.
And this goes into what you had mentioned, where people are stuck in their ways. So the next one is kind of same, ties into everything, the challenger safety, being able to say, it's always been done this way, so we're going to keep doing it that way. And this is a crazy example of modern eras just being done the way it's always been done. A shuttle is as wide as 2 horses behind, which is crazy to think. But the reason for that is because we have to transport rockets on railroads. Why does that matter for a horse? So weirdly enough, rails are exactly 4 feet, 8.5 inches wide. That's also a very weird measurement, but that is approximately 2 horses behind. So back, our railroad system was built by people that were come over from England. And they were the first ones to lay the railroad lines, and that was what was in the railway lines in England. And then in England, the people who built the railways were the ones that had to continue to use the building of wagons and wagon wheels, and that was the space of the wagon wheels to transport information to the, obviously they're pulling things by horses and things like that. They tried to use other spacing for the wagon wheels, but they would break more often because in the roads they had divots, and those continual divots would cause wheels to break. So they had to stick with what was the original Imperial Roman distance of what was the width of those wheels on the that became the ruts of the chariots from old Roman times. So that is how, and unfortunately with our space shuttles being built in one location and moving to another by railway and having to go through tunnel systems and other things that are, very specific to the railway size, then while engineers wanted to revolutionize the rockets and make them a different size, unfortunately, they have to be shipped by train, and they were unable to change anything about them. So there was, other than, having new technology and new ways to ship things, no one has challenged the original status quo.
Oh my goodness. I mean, to think that if so many years ago, someone said, hey, you know what, we should make it bigger because we don't have the same roads yet because we haven't built them. You know, our wagons can be a different size. It's just hilarious though that our new shuttles, our great technology, have to be the size of 2 horse butts. It's amazing.
So, obviously forward thinking, going beyond, there's a lot of scary tactics out there about chat GPT and AI and where is this going? And this is one of those cusps of, being open to change. How are you going to utilize this as a tool? How is this going to change academia? And, what is this? How do we keep up with the times of even teaching our children for a world we don't know how to prepare for? And so we can't keep doing things that we've always been doing. We need innovative ideas. We need to create this area of psychological safety in all of these aspects for, industries, large industries, to pivot in ways we haven't seen before. And obviously people say, well, technology is going to take away humans' jobs. Humans have to think longer term. Like, you have to give them the space to do this and think outside the box and have the safety to do that. Otherwise, we're going to start seeing the next Blockbusters to go out of business and Toys R Us because they're just not pivoting fast enough.
Well, Michelle, I can't thank you enough. I know from past experience, you and I could stay and talk a lot longer. And I hope to have you back on Merritt and Friends. But thank you so much for all your great insight.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a really nice discussion, and I think a really important one, and kind of new food for thought for a lot of businesses or people in some of these spaces that can influence this change.
Definitely. Well, thank you everyone for joining us at Merritt and Friends. We'll see you next time.